guess a 5-year-old.
Oh, really? Were you guys like the Christian household?
Yeah. Baptist.
When you grow up, right, you feel like the security blanket, you gotta put the phone next to you.
What's that?
Feel like the security blanket, you gotta put the phone next to you.
Well, it's just, yeah, I need to get over that habit.
I'm trying not to. I try to put it out of sight, and then I'm like, you know what, in sight, but if I don't look at the screen, it's cool.
I kind of don't like modern technology has done to human interaction. I just don't like I find myself dazed and liking people's shit. Like. How much time am I wasting liking people's pictures?
You could quantify it. You wake up and you notice a half an hour, an hour of your life goes by while you do your first social media feed, and then we go back to the trough a couple times. So if you can limit it between when you first wake up and when you go to bed, I think that's pretty good. That's a step. But I would like to eliminate that first half hour, an hour of
I don't think that's a good starting ritual for that.
No, but I mean, you have to acknowledge your addiction. If you could funnel it only into the beginning and the end of the day and not the middle, that's a start. But like that middle, varying multiple death by 1,000 cuts, I think is worse. It's like when you check it 20 times during the day, you're really taking yourself out of your zone. So in December, I stopped. I just slowed down and stopped feeding into that, let my cell phone go. So this actually doesn't even have juice. I don't even know why I hang out with it. But and I started that hustle around the same time.
Really?
And so, and then I introduced
What in your right mind made you do that? That seems like, to me it seems...
I was talking to a homegirl about it. I was
risky, dangerous.
Does it? Well, apparently last night, yeah.
Like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, you seem awesome, so
yeah.
I'm cool with you, but...
Well, I try to make the space an extension of me, so when you look at the book, you're like, someone actually read my book title, so you understand, like, yeah, I'm actually thinking about shit. But most people are just like, that looks cool. And they're all getting rained on, but like, I read most of those books. Like,
yeah, they seem very interesting. I would love to like dig into some.
And then the colors and stuff. But yeah. So what made me want to do that? So I was doing real estate for 5 years, and then I was doing okay. I was making like 100, 200,000 a year, and I had my own business.
Water?
Oh, of course.
Making a lot of money.
I mean, for New York, you have to make at least 100 to, like, that apartment costs $2,600. So you got to make at least 100 to afford a decent place.
Right.
And I came here, I was sleeping in the Central Park for the first week or so. I borrowed some money, moved here from Puerto Rico. So I was like I did a lot of things in my 20s, writing and being a starving artist. And then I did that Occupy Wall Street thing when I was 29 and got camped out with them because I've always written political stuff. And tried documentaries and like traveling California about political writing, and then and then I turned 30 and that Occupy Wall Street shit was a bust. And I was like, although I got 17 hours of footage from I paid a guy to follow me with HD camera, so I have really cool. I probably have the best documentary footage of the protest movement from the inside. 17 hours of meeting all the people, and 3 or 4 months I had known all the people, and I did a presentation about a book project, and I wanted them to give me some money. And they shot me down because of dipshits. But I got everything on film, so it's gonna be a really cool day in the life. Nice. But that's so right now I'm practicing editing. So to catch up to here, so I was like, fuck that shit. I'm 30. Someone told me whatever you're doing when you're 30 is probably what you're gonna be doing. And I was like, I don't want to be fucking broke. And Puerto Rico's great. I was a tour guide, living crazy life, hooking up with tourists and just being in the ocean every day. But I was like, I should go make some money. Either stocks or real estate is where money is. And I know I could survive in New York. After doing the protests, I lived on the street for 6 months in churches and squats.
Really?
And I was like, I've always been pretty confident. So I was like, well, I stayed at an anarchist squat, slept in a tent in the backyard, and then got my real estate license, sold a guitar. Really romantic shit. Sold a Martin guitar for $700, paid for my real estate license. And then lived in had fallout with the anarchists, lived in Central Park for a week until I made my first commission, started staying in hostels, $25 a night hostels in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And then moved my way up, and now I have a sweet ass. So I had that apartment, and it was December, and I had my company had started. So 5 years in real estate did me well. And I did 170 on my last tax return. I have to do mine for this year. So I was like, all right, I'm on the path. And once you have had a corporation for a year in real estate, you have a company in real estate, the best real estate market in the world. That was just like the first Craigslist ad I answered. I could have been stocks, but luckily with real estate I have over 5 years, not just wasting my life, but like, you know, if you're a journaler, a writer, a note taker, 5 years of walking the city, so like I really know New York. So it's like stocks would have made me a fucking cokehead or some shit, but like at least half my job was spent walking all these streets.
Certainly probably want to give you the fuel for writing.
Yeah, like with this, like this place has great energy, and like there's like fucking 1,000 of them, right? And good people, so it's like the energy of the place attracts.
No, I feel electric when just walking around here, just going to that bar, and, you know, singing show tunes and shit.
Exactly.
No, there's just a different energy that I don't get.
And you don't always get from
things that are stimulated in me that don't usually get stimulated.
Exactly. You don't always get from the tourist traps. It comes from the owners, I think. The culture always comes tops down. You guys, the owners, are pretty cool, right? It's a group of friends who like. She's like, she works with them, but like.
There's, you know, all the layers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, though. I love.
This place feels better than the Waverly Diner, and I love the Waverly Diner for like a diner. But like, you know, there's that, and then there's. Are they? Yeah.
I don't know. Those who works there, so like, we're very like efficient. No, I mean New York though. When I lived in Berlin for a little while, and I loved it there. But speaking of the symphony, there is like the rhythm there for the bass. You know, you could feel it vibrating in the streets, but it wasn't obvious. But here, it's like a piccolo. It's like a fucking piccolo.
A piccolo? That's really good. That's a good way to put it.
You're my new friend. You're ripping off my metaphor. I love it.
I mean, I grew up here, so like my norm is a piccolo. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're not exposed to that, and then you breathe, and your body's like my like stimulation level is low. So I was looking for another way. So I couldn't find it.
I feel like I'm from California, from LA, and I lived in Santa Cruz, San Francisco, all over. And like, once you really make New York your home, no other city feels like real. And I haven't been to London and shit, but like, I heard London might be comparable. I just had a hostile guy who prefers London over here, but the smog and the fucking pollution's terrible and the weather's terrible. But like, for the energy New York gives you, everywhere else will feel a step down, I think. Once you learn how to live in this energy, everything else feels like an invitation.
Rise above it.
Create it.
So what?
I'm trying to learn how to create it.
It's a wave. Like, this is like Mavericks. You have to stay on top of the wave, just like it's like a trip. So I think the more drugs you take, the more life becomes like a drug. You stay on top of the trip instead of underneath. And when you're having a bad day, it's like you're having a bad trip, and then you're just like, all right, I just need to get back on top of this.
Because of the drug, man.
I've never tripped.
Well, because drugs are like, well, money's a good metaphor. They empower you. And so if you're unified within your sense of self, you'll feel empowered like striking the string of an instrument. But if you have disunity, then you'll shatter against yourself, because whatever little crack in your personal belief system will be amplified now. So all drugs do is amplify. All money does is amplify your energy, so now I can do more things because I can pay people to. And all New York does is amplify. New York's like a tool.
But you gotta be careful saying what kind of drug it is. It has the power to destroy as well. So I mean, the psychedelics definitely certainly beneficial.
Some drugs amplify in certain ways, but I would take that metaphor all the way to the bank. So like, all of them amplify, but then some of them amp you up to the point that they'll destroy your speakers. Like, so yeah.
Exactly, there you go.
Some of them do psychotic things.
Yeah. I have this acid that put this girl in the jail because she took it, and then she went into a bodega and started ripping all the stuff off the shelves, saying we're all in the Matrix. So my friend was like, I'm not taking this, but you can. And I was like, I'll take it, because I think I've done enough to tell you what type of shit it is. But I haven't yet. I respect it. But like, when I feel in a really good headspace, I'll be like, all right, acid, let's fucking go. Like a babysitter to keep me from going to jail, and I'll be like, let's see what you're all about. But
that's the only time I write poetry is when I'm doing acid.
Yeah, there you go. Accessing different parts of your brain.
Parts of your brain, but sometimes it connects to the parts that you're not even fucking able to handle.
That's why I told some girls who were going to trip with me at the beach, I was like, let's do an inventory check of all your personal shit before we do this, because I don't know you that well. And
Why it's lying low.
That's a good way to approach it. To have a meditative phase where you sort of.
Especially with strangers. Don't do psychedelics with strangers, I've learned, because you don't know what type of shit's going to come out.
Well, I do that in ayahuasca ceremonies and just.
Have you done
that? Yeah. absolutely.
Do you have like people who are kind of holding the group together?
Yeah,
you always
shaman.
have someone.
That's great.
And then people on either side facilitating, helping the shaman.
I think the
picking up the purge, bags of
The
purge.
bad energy, spitting it out.
Have you tried it?
I haven't.
Ayahuasca?
I've heard good things.
They have circles in New York.
Yeah, in Brooklyn, a church that's trying to make it like a religious thing. So they're trying to get like, I know some people involved in that, and there's legit like I think the best shamans come from like the tradition, like people who have family or like learned about it somehow in a non-monetized way. I don't know. I've
Yeah,
never
it's
done
becoming
it.
very westernized, very capitalistic.
Well, yeah, I knew some girls I met in Puerto Rico. I haven't like that acid when it comes across. I think part of that it seems hippy dippy shit, but it's your subconscious again. You don't want too much rational intent, but if things just seem to connect on a certain day, that might be your subconscious pushing it. So like let it call you a little bit, and then maybe your brain's gonna open up in a different way. It's like an intuitive. It's like art. Create art when you feel like creating art. Not forcing
Yeah, that's why I
yourself.
don't really believe in writer's block.
Exactly. That's what
I don't think it
Bukowski
exists.
I just started getting into him last year, and he was like, "Don't force yourself to do it. Do it."
Staring
when
at a white page. This is the movie. The role I'm playing is a guy who's staring at a white page. Like, that's insanity.
Oh,
Why
sure.
would you stare at a white page? Go and have an experience.
I think that comes
When
from.
you live.
Yeah, that's.
Because writing is nothing more than putting thoughts that you have in symbolic form, transmuting it into a social currency.
You
so to
think?
speak. What's that?
We'll get back to that metaphor, the artist versus. But no, you're thinking about. Unlike most other creators, most other creators have this tormented artist, and that's why that script, and that's maybe why they should
That's
go
another
with it.
fucking
It's filled with.
archetypal myth.
Yeah.
Tortured artist. I think it's just bullshit. I think artists should be the height of human development and health. To me.
It's like saying the tortured lover. It's like no, you should be an expression of your pure self,
Yeah, absolutely.
pinnacle of joy.
Right, the edge of your feeling creative.
Say what?
I think
Right.
part of the process of creativity is not just creating things, it's breaking them down.
Well, that's the exciting thing about art is you are the highest point of human expression, but you venture to the outer reaches of human cognition or creativity. And so you're going into the wild outside of our human tribe, and that's what's wild about it.
Yeah.
So you are your strongest self, but because you're venturing out of our fold into the wild to bring back wisdom.
If you're staying in the confines of your tribe, all you're doing is what's the point in saying anything? What's that?
You're not going out to the woods. You're literally stabbing people.
Okay, your metaphor, yeah, that might be. I'm interested to see what your art looks like. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like if you're looking at the metaphor of the tribe, I think the creation aspect is reproduction, right? Or like having children.
Stabbing, penetrating. I like how you meant. Yeah.
But the act of creation also has the death. People die, people are murdered. There's not just like peaceful coexistence between people in the tribe. It's like emotions are induced, lots of people are fucking crazy. Some people live by the law, some people have to be punished, but you know, like
Yeah, you guys are fucking stimulating. I'm not used to this.
Hey.
Stimulation. It's pretty cool.
It's a spot.
I'm usually talking to myself.
Yeah, right. I think that's
What I
how.
should say is masturbation.
That's how New York is though. Like it's such a
It's kind of yeah.
intellectually
I didn't know
stimulating.
it existed.
Maybe you need to move to the city.
I live in the insurance capital of the world.
Really? Scottsdale, Arizona?
No, that's where it is.
Where's Hartford, Connecticut? Yeah, no, that's big too. I used to my folks have an insurance company in California, or a brokerage.
A very bourgeois upbringing.
Yeah, they always did sales, so I knew that like stocks or real estate I'd be good at because I grew up in like brokering, but it's the same shit. Oh yeah, I was telling you, so like, so in December I was like, fuck, I'm unhappy. Like you push your dreams away so far, you become a disgruntled person, and like you think you're gonna do it part time,
I
but
don't even know what the fuck dreams mean.
dreams are like
I don't even believe in them, to be honest.
you don't dream.
What?
You don't dream.
Okay, so when you, at night, have subconscious impressions?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Okay. And I think etymology is important. So why do we use dreams for long-term goals as well as our subconscious impressions? Because our long-term goals are probably coming from our subconscious. it's more of an emotional goal than it is rational, just like your dreams.
Goals are cool. What I don't like about the whole thing on dreams is this kind of like deferring your joy to an endpoint.
Yeah, that's
saying,
the problem
okay,
I was
I have
getting.
to meet this form over here, and where am I now? You know, like to me, I think it's better following your music. I think would be a better way to put it.
Well,
So
no,
instead
I
of
agree
like
with you.
trying to achieve some external form somewhere else, like go deeper into where you are now. You know?
I agree with you. Yeah, that was the conundrum I was having. If like the way I talk, I try to like pursue truth. So even if I have a wrong opinion, I'll advocate it until I'm proven wrong. Otherwise, I feel like I brought something new to the discussion. So looking at my own life with that honesty, I was like, I'm not really an artist if I'm not doing it. And I agree with that concept of dreams. It's like if you're not doing your dreams, they're no longer your dreams. They're your excuses for living your life, your rationalization for selling out. And then you don't want to discover that when you're 50. And that's why I don't like a lot like Paulo Coelho or like these other guys. They sell these shitty ass fucking new age self-help books. But it's like these guys were
Well,
idealistic.
like The Secret and shit. Like I'm very anti.
It's lowbrow philosophy, lowbrow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you look at their lives, I always judge what someone writes by their life. You have to live your philosophy, or else you're just a sophist. You know, that's my biggest critique throughout history is people represent ideas they don't really believe in.
Right.
But like, you know, you have
a
like
philosopher, but be also a man.
yeah, there we go. That's a good way to put it. That's like a fucking really David Hume.
He's my favorite Scottish philosopher. If I had to hang out with any black one.
I was gonna say that's like a very much like what is this the guy who
Happy
wrote
dude, happy folk.
yeah
Oh, yeah. So you don't have to be a fucking tortured.
yeah.
I think people kind of impose that on. They try to sink into some.
What'd you say? Be a philosopher, but also be a man.
Be also a man.
Be also a
That's
man.
what people say.
Yeah, like Augustine or what is it? Not Augustine. That one fucking Latin emperor who wrote his diaries, and then it became like Stoicism, like his virtues of living. But like yeah, whatever you believe, you also live. And, oh shit!
Still
Put a
accepted.
side salad on there, but
They're probably less happy than David Hume though.
we found some apple.
You put apple in there?
Yeah.
Sweet. I'll tell you how it tastes. If it tastes horrible, I won't blame you.
Phew.
Now, what are these sauces?
This is sweet
What is
and
it?
spicy mustard.
That's what?
Sweet mustard.
Sweet and spicy.
So I was like, I need to work on being a man, like according to my own belief system. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna. Oh, and also because this is like I told you, this is my. I don't know if I told you, this is my social security number tattooed on my arm. So I'm like a pretty ardent anarchist as far as like, if I had my prescription
Kind of got
for
that vibe.
yeah, my prescription for society would be just to devolve as much authority as you can. Which sounds at odds with my idea of people not having agency, but I have like a comprehensive. I'm working on. That's what I'm working on. I'm getting down my belief system into a comprehensive. So what?
Atheist.
I kind of sidestep that question. I mean, I guess I would do that about human agency too. I just think that there's other red meat to put on our plate to digest right now. And so I'm interested in systems and authority and agency as it relates to those authorities. But then as far as how much free will does the individual have and what is our spiritual...
If any.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even care about that. Let's like solve social stuff first. It's like, I feel like...
Oh, we'd have a shit ton of conversations.
But yeah, so I was like...
And we'd probably get into some wrestling matches.
Yeah, well, there are some, intellectually, there are some places I can already see where, like, you outline your position and me, but, like, you have to do groundwork so that way I wouldn't want to, disagree with you on stuff that we don't really
Well, what's
disagree
funny
with.
about talking to you is I feel like I'm going to be really challenged to try to articulate things that I didn't necessarily have to articulate.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people have conversations with them like, oh, that's interesting, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I try to
So
be
it's
sincere,
like-
yeah.
It's like going to a sparring match when you don't have another person sparring, you know? So,
But if you're a writer, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Because if you really believe you're writing something important, you're like, I'm putting this down and I should have said the last word on it because once I let it out there, everyone else is going to have their piece.
right.
So you're supposed to not wrap it in a bow, but you say, as far as I can tell, this is my view and a 360 of everyone who could interact with it. And then I've said my piece, now you guys take it. The writer's not supposed to have to come in a generation later and say, well, actually, it's like, no, you're supposed to have said it and be done with it. So So that's
You're supposed to bring it to its fullest expression.
as far as you can see, and then make your peace with the fact that future generations will build upon your work and point out your blind spots, but because they're standing on your shoulders. If you actually enter the canon of thought, and if you don't, then you weren't as smart as you thought you were, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the goal of an intellectual, is to join that discussion. But if you say something that's like didn't have to be said, already was said, you don't really join the discussion. So you gotta like. That's why everyone still reads Marx, because he read everyone before him. So I read like economic literature, and these rabid capitalists are giving me an outline of Marx. And one of the guys said that he was like, we don't really subscribe to socialism or communism, but we gotta have to mention Marx because he synthesized so much of what came before him that you can't ignore him, even if you ideologically are like opposed to him. So during my Occupy Wall Street days, I got turned on to anarchism, and then I decided it was the most mature political philosophy I've ever come across. So right now I'm trying to synthesize like form of anarchism, Zen Buddhism, and like permaculture as applied to a political reality. And like reality, not like what we learn in school, but like the actual context based on as accurate a historic record as we can find, which it really infuriates you if you are a current intellectual, that when you go through like universities and stuff, you're not allowed to have real discussions. Like I just read a book by Sam Powers, who's the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and she's talking about genocide, and she picks 3 examples: Serbia, Croatia, fucking the Cambodians and the Khmer Rouge, and fucking probably the Jews, and I think one other one. But she ignores all the U.S. supported genocides. And it's like, how can you're like the highest pinnacle of your intellectual tradition, ambassador to the UN, you're supposed to be the smartest person we have in that capacity. And she gave us a fucking like 3rd grade reading of history. And it beat you over the head with a genocide stick so that way she can, which is really dangerous because right now we're supporting Kurds in northern Syria on the southern border of Turkey, claiming now we have an ethnic group that we can claim is being genocided against to support another invasion, you know? So it's very scary, the intellectual argument she's preparing. And if you say, well, you're too cynical, Shaz, well, what other excuse does she have to not mention any of the genocides we supported? And we outweigh the ones that she talked about. We've killed more than 10, 20 million people in our fucking sociopathic quest for empire since World War II. But no one in the public sphere is having that honest intellectual. So if I have that, and I achieve that with the principles of these other wisdom traditions that I really like, Zen Buddhism, where order and meaning can come from chaos or randomness, that's the idea of the I Ching.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Follow.
I mean, that's what psychedelics show you a little bit. I mean, I think they're supposed to. Some people think that they give you meaning and purpose. They're supposed to show you how meaning and purpose arises out of nothingness. Like you take a drug and all of a sudden you poke your finger in your brain and you get a world philosophy. That doesn't mean it was there before. It means maybe that's all the world philosophy is a finger getting poked into your brain.
A finger getting poked in your brain, yeah.
It's like, but once you let that go and acknowledge that all belief systems are just constructed, then you're like, well, let's do away with the bad ones and let's consciously construct. And if we can't consciously construct because they come from the subconscious or randomness, that's what the I Ching and these other things, they would read into tea leaves. They would give a little bit of rational thought into a little bit of randomness, and between the two would allow for meaning to happen. That's why all of our romances, any relationship you've had, there has to be a little bit of kismet. If it's all just kismet, randomness, chance.
Yeah.
If it's all just predetermined, it's not romantic. But for some reason, you walked outside and you met her at a park, or some funny thing happened, and that's what gives you that good. Yeah.
Oh, my love life has always been all over the place.
Which lends to the romance, right?
It's always been fiery.
Fiery. That's good because you're passionate.
I tend to draw people who are borderline personalities.
That's what you're doing is you're being attracted to interesting, which is cool. But once you start finding interesting, not in the crazy bin, I think that's when you start winning. But like, yeah, I would always like.
Well, I think we're opening it up to a semi kind of polyamorous, which we don't really like go all in on because we're both very hesitant, timid, to progress that. But I think it's actually the right direction we should be going.
To reach like a highest forms of romance, as far as I've experienced them, you definitely have to walk that non-possessive love path. And polyamory teaches a man how to love a woman without trying to possess her. But I think, from my experience, biologically at their heart, women want to be monogamous. So, so what?
With a guy.
Oh, with the okay. Then I've spoken outside my. I don't know. I don't know how that works. My brother's gay, but yeah.
Well, he's really feminine.
Well, I've learned it from my brother.
Extremely feminine. Like, you know immediately. You're like, okay, this is the soul of the woman.
Have you seen Hedwig and the Angry Inch?
See what?
Hedwig and the Angry Inch?
Yeah.
They have that little myth about like we were all one sex before he split. At the very end, I thought that was really cute. A little like gender mythology to like give peace to everyone. What I learned from my brother though is don't speak on things you don't know. So I was asking him when I was younger. There's this guy at Starbucks where I worked, and I was like, maybe that's why I hate him. I was like, I don't know if he's gay or not. You know, do you have any tips? And he was like, well, are you interested in him? And I was like, no. And he was like, then why do you care? And I was like, that's a good way to put it. If you're not interested in them, why do you care? And then that'll keep you from treating people differently. So like,
I thought it's kind of a beautiful gift for me because I guess I don't know, whatever fucking label it is, pansexual or bi, whatever. I kind of fall in love with the heart and the body that they carry around, you know, the beating heart. You know, that's.
I've always felt that.
What's that?
I've always felt that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a good male romance in my life that I've yet to experience.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
That's interesting.
you know, like, Min, I never know how to say her name. She was a lover of Henry Miller. I really like that age. Pre-World War II, there was like, from turn of the 20th century to like World War II, before that travesty, the world was on this really cool path of like empathy, I think.
Apples in here too.
Oh, they give you apples too? It's good, right?
Yeah.
It works.
Not
Yeah.
my car, but whatever.
Oh, fuck. Just a little bit. It's just a half apple. But yeah, people are more open to shit like that. This identity politics where stuffing everyone in boxes sucks.
I don't like the identity politics shit.
And that goes back to power structures, is that once you're able to claim power through identity, then it's only going to reinforce itself.
Thank you.
That's what people act like Trump was the first Trump president. Obama was the first Trump president. No, not even that. We've been having dipshit presidents for a while, probably since George Bush really lowered the bar. But people think that Obama raised the bar. Like, look at his record. You know, he was a major, like his campaign and his actions were such a difference in rhetoric and action that he pretty much set us up for Trump. Because once people experience that type of, it's like we're going from bad relationship to bad relationship. But he was the sociopath who really fucks with you. The rebound guy after George Bush that you really thought was a good guy. And then you look and your bank accounts are gone. Literally. Like that's why Hillary, one of the reasons she lost to Trump is Obama put the DNC in debt for $20 million for its re-election and he never paid it back. And then here come the Clintons who are like the mafia, are like, we got the money. Because they own all the fucking fundraising for the DNC. So I read Wasserman Schultz. Was it her? No, someone else. The head of the Democratic, I think the chair, whatever you call it, got fired halfway through Hillary's campaign. They hired a new girl. The new girl, smart, old school politician, she didn't want to be a fall girl. So she wrote a book afterwards about her experience to try to air the record. And she said some shit they didn't want her to say. So that's where she said, you know, Obama kind of fucked us and some other shit. But yeah, no, so our identity politics, I think, stem from the last, 8 of Bush, 8 of Obama, 4 of Trump now, we'll say 2. 18 years, last 2 decades of politics in America have lowered us to a tribal, animalistic nature of like black, white, blah, blah, blah. Because
Yeah, I'm constantly like, after my friend who's very, you would call her as social justice
Hi,
warrior.
Jimmy. How are ya?
So many of her posts are like white this, white man are the enemy, white.
I'm on Reddit and it's like black
What's that?
person Twitter, white person Twitter. It's like, what does this mean?
Yeah, I think
What
it's
the fuck? Why is society constantly reminding us to identify ourselves at the lowest common denominator of like physical appearance?
Exactly.
I just found out I had a North African fucking Jewish ancestor, great-grandfather, who looks like Kobe Bryant. Like, that's why my hair's kinky, you know? It's like, wait, I'm like, so I'm 136, 116, something.
Yeah.
How close to the circle do I get to sit? I'm not in the center of the tribe, but is Tiger Woods? How far out am I? Where does my opinion matter? I don't physically look black anymore. So does that deny more? They call the Irish people monkeys. Turn of the 18th century when they were coming over here from, 1800s. When they were coming over here from Ireland during the potato famine. They were an inferior, so what?
Monkeys.
Monkeys.
Oh, monkeys, really?
They drew them as monkeys in the newspapers. There's this comic book that wanted to get produced that to remind people of like the Irish. That's not in our common narrative. But in the New York Times and the major newspapers, you would draw these monkey people getting off the boat saying we can't have these inferior races. America's always been like really racist. When we went in and we marched on Mexico during the American-Mexican War, we marched on their capital. We should have taken over the country, but they were debating in Congress we can't take them over because they haven't separated the races enough for us. It was
Really?
too mixed.
Oh shit.
And that's in the congressional record, them saying, you know what, Mexico, like it would be a great colony for us, but they haven't figured out how to separate the races like we have. So Mexico was too fucking mixed for America to own it as a colony like we did the Philippines and all the other fucking colonies were. So all this shit should be talked about instead of, so you wonder, that's the history we don't talk about, but we do talk about the American dream, the rugged individual who can achieve all. There's a connection between the two. Propping up systemic violence and propping up the individual's ego. Because then every narrative I get about social justice is about how it's just individuals. Bad individuals who need to do better, or bad white people who need to recognize the shame. And there's this girl from fucking Canada, sweet girl, 45, who smoked weed. She was a hostel goer. She was telling me about how, yeah, we treat the natives so bad. I was like, you treat the natives so bad? You don't look like a rich person. She was like, no, but you know, us white people have like a guilt we have. I'm like, really? They got you on that shit? I was like, you are the natives. The poor white and the poor natives need it. Most of modern political discussions are to separate oppressed groups against each other. And they've been saying that about the South forever. Don't let the poor blacks and the poor whites. Jim Crow started.
Okay, so it's creating another tribe in the name of anti-tribalism.
Exactly. Purposeful,
Why
always
don't-
purposeful.
Why don't they understand that? And I'm saying they already, so it's like I can't even escape my own fucking tribe.
We don't have the language. That's something
Hey,
my
it's
last
a good point.
my last mushroom trip I wrote down. I'll show you my cards. I was typing on my phone, but then at one point you can't do the technology, so I was writing on note cards.
And I think I know why we don't have the language, because these things can't be expressed in language.
Okay.
What's that?
Okay. Franz Fanon, you've read him?
Who?
Franz Fanon, psychologist. He talked about Africa and the mind of the colonized, the oppressed. He gave he's a cornerstone book to understand oppressed psychology, because he was a psychologist from Africa, from a colony, and then talking about his own people. So he also achieved success in empire, which is something I realized in real estate. Until you achieve success in empire, you can't really talk about it because you carry a lot of baggage of poverty and anger. But once you have the money, that's what I felt in December. It's like, I've got the money and success. That shit doesn't just go away. I can turn that company back on tomorrow. I need to do it in April because I'm running out of money, but I owe the government like $100 grand. Only in America you can make so much money and then I made $500,000 in real estate so far probably, and I never saved any of it. So the IRS never forgets. But they're cool. You call them, you tell them, I got you next month. So I called them in January. I was like, I'm not going to have anything till April. They're like, all right. But come April, they're going to want some money.
Right.
But yeah, so friends, so what I wrote when I was tripping on mushrooms was, our violence has escaped description. And so we don't have language for oppression. And that's something that the guys who studied this 2 generations ago also said. If you keep the oppression internalized to the point that the oppressed can't even describe their oppression, that's when you really... Violence only controls people for so long. When you read history, you realize that violence has always been short-term to get people in situations, and then mostly it's psychological. And that goes back to my idea of like agency, is if we really don't have that much rational control over our actions, and if you just control people's main narratives, you control them. Because their actions are really just an expression of their main narratives. And the Franciscan priests realized this during the Reformation. It's like our intellectual tradition of Western colleges comes from the Counter-Reformation, which, to put it in speak that like most people understand, Franciscan intellectual tradition in Catholicism came. The Reformation was to reform the Catholic Church, which is this flaming pile of shit. Counter-Reformation was to,
Martin Luther.
yeah, exactly. That was it.
99 confessions. Of
Uh-huh.
99
And he had his own problems too, because he said, let's reform this just by putting a strong man in charge. So that's where like the left veers off into like dictatorship. It's like we just need the right person in charge. So that's what
which is a fallacy.
yeah.
It's a fallacy.
They gave it to Martin. I think I forgot what was Vienna or something. They said, all right, Martin, that's where he eventually ended up, in his life. There's a city-state that said, we really like your thoughts, just be in control of everything over here. And so that's where he did. That was his refuge. He went and became like the prince, dictator, religious leader of a city-state and fucking outlawed everything he thought was immoral and ran them. But that's not utopia.
We need greater space for these conversations, but
Exactly.
just to inject my thought that ultimately, you say we need a language for it, and I say ultimately you can't be confined to language, because I think language is a social currency. It's trying to confine something that's perhaps ineffable into a socially open to a social currency.
That denies
To
the
something
history of
constrained.
people trying to take away your language. Like that's acting like we're just in an organic.
You're talking about the realm of politics. I'm talking about something else. It's like politics is a game of narratives competing with other narratives.
Cool.
You know what I'm saying? And narratives are what are they made of? They're made of words, and words are subconscious something constrained to something that can have political currency. So ultimately, once you bring an emotion or feeling into a word, you've made it a piece of the political game.
Yeah, but then
I'm like,
you'd have to define some of those terms and you'd have to defend them.
absolutely.
So
And I'm jumping out without any.
No, that's okay, that's
right
great.
now, so it's like,
yeah, because I would say that politics isn't that. Politics is economics. So political economy is the thing. The atomization of all these ideas down to smaller constituent groups are to stop us from having language which can describe the greater system. So I was like the God view, and I inherited this world and a position of power, and I just want to keep it going. And someone was trying to catch me up to speed on the game we've been playing. They'd be like, look, we've historically had power, our families or whatever, or these groups, whatever you want to call it, the power basis in society. And then you're like, and what we do is we keep all the answers separated, so that way we prevent synthesis, because that's what it seems like the world needs most, and that's where it seems like the energy is going towards, to prevent a synthesis of ideas and concepts which could address, and what would you call it when the doctor tells you what you have, diagnose and solve systemic at the highest level. And so I feel like politics and economics is one of those things. That's why nothing good comes from politics, because that's not the discussion. So, and that's why I love etymology, because etymology, the history of words, shows you where these ideas were split into smaller constituent groups, which are now ineffective alone. So economics comes from, I think, the household, because that's how we're dividing our resources, right? As a household, as a society. So how is economics different from politics? Isn't that? I'll keep picking at it. Politics is about dividing our resources, but politics is about...
I think it's just a different currency, but I think it's similar. So economics is just dividing resources as far as material goods or money.
Any
Whereas
resource, right?
politics, I think it's narratives. I think that's what we're...
Well, no, but let's be a strict definition of politics. What is politics? Deciding on how we, as a society, make decisions. It's the macro, the large tribe, whatever political entity that is. So we politics on a local scale or large scale, but whatever politics, whatever the grade of your microscope, whatever you're drilling down
That's
to.
my boy.
Oh, is that your? Oh, is it here right now? In the city?
He's at home.
Well, how old are you? You're in your 30s?
I'm
40? Okay. Young 40. Right. But my brother's 38. Yeah, he says he's 30 and changed. And you can still
I'm 30-10.
That's a good one.
I'm going to stay in my 30s forever.
So,
Actually, I turned 30-11 in May.
30-11, right? So that was part of my idea in December was I'm 35, I'm turning 36 in Thursday. And I told myself on my 35th year I'm going to have a unified philosophy of what I believe. Might not be perfect, but I'm going to have in writing what I believe, what I've been trying to live by.
But it's only to be dismantled.
Yeah,
at some
of
point.
course. I just
Good.
at least get it down to know what you believe.
I like it.
Because as I've been doing that, I've realized all these ideas of like, you only really understand 10% of what you believe. And through the tripping and through the writing and through, I recorded myself a bunch of hours and then I've been watching what I say. Speaking pressured speech, I have the newspaper I'm just reading and trying to explain the world as I read it. I've got like 10 hours of that now and I've been editing it down, that's all I do.
And I'm listening to your own voice?
Watching myself. I have a video on YouTube I'll give it to you. Just me talking, and then I just cut it all together. And I'm realizing, wow, you don't remember fucking most of what you say. And all of these beliefs and this guy talking, like if I asked you what you believe and you just told me and then I actually recorded it and played it back to you, you'd be like, wow, I guess, like I could like from an hour conversation with you probably distill a belief system. It's not like you walk around consciously thinking of that, but you're expressing it. And so we all are so very little
Which
aware.
I would reject. I mean, I'd be like, no, that's...
Exactly. And yet, if you had another conversation with you a month later, probably the same belief system will come out.
Right.
Because, so that's why I brought up the
That's
Franciscans. So they're the ones who said, give me a child until the age 6, and I'll give you a Catholic for life or something like that. They were like, how do we stop this
like
reformation?
James Watson, a psychologist, said, give me a child and I'll create the man or something.
Exactly, stuff like
Something
that.
like that.
So they figured this out early on when you were trying to reform the most violent institution of that time, which was the Catholic Church. Is that the guy who was going to defend the Catholic Church, which funny enough was a guy who got his balls shot off with a cannonball. So he was a eunuch. So who knows?
His balls shot off?
The cannonball went through his legs and shot off his balls. That was Francis Assisi, the guy who started the Western intellectual tradition. So there has to be some sort of sexual shit going in there. But he was like,
Francis Assisi got his balls shot off?
I think so. The guy, the Franciscan Order of Monks, who started the first intellectual tradition, they started the first, like, modern universities within the Catholic system, which is why the oldest universities in the Western tradition are usually Catholic, usually religious. And it goes all the way to this church right here, Father Domo Square. That's a Catholic. That's the biggest building on my block of the West Village. The biggest buildings in the town are usually the bank because they have all the money. So in my area of town, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, but in my area, it's a church because it had all the money at the turn of the 20th century. So this guy, like, all of that goes into how we view education and how we view ourselves, because at the heart of our narrative of sense of self is the Western canon. And so that's why I put my target on as, like, I am going after Western civilization as it identifies itself through the Western canon, which means I have to dismantle all that to get to something before that if I want to establish what I call the barbaric, which is human nature before this bullshit, which is also what I call the subconscious. Human nature before these. You have to get to that basic programming in order to sort of troubleshoot it, but you can break something. So that's where you say so psychedelics can...
What's that?
Psychedelics can break your mind.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Getting to your primal. Once you transmute the primal into a vocabulary, a word, it becomes not primal anymore.
So I agree with you there, where you're like, I say our
Like,
violence...
I mean, the evidence of this is in psychedelic trips itself, where you're just in touch with the ineffable. Shit you can't really describe. You only can approximate that. I think our greatest poets, that's what they do. They approximate that, something that can't.
And isn't it interesting? They paint that onto form, and that's what I really like about art. Is I really believe that you have form, a script, a 3-act structure with 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you want to go, but 1-2-1 structure. Have you read any books on screenwriting, Sid Field and shit?
Just like bits and pieces.
You could have a stopwatch, any blockbuster movie, and 15-20 minutes in, you're going to introduce a romantic lead, or you're going to do the fucking inciting incident within the first 5 minutes, first plot point within the first end of the first act, beginning of the second, and then so
It's a formula. I mean,
what's a form?
Kind
Formula is like, I think, denigrates it, but the artist takes a form, stanza, but then adds their genius onto it. But without form, we don't have a scaffolding to add that subconscious. Was it ephemerate, whatever you ineffable, yeah.
Quality.
So I could acknowledge the existence of that.
What forms are necessary. They're definitely necessary.
But you
I'm
said
saying once you worship forms, you're fucked already.
The master is able to break those.
It's a false idol.
But yeah, the master is a master of the rules in order to break them. So I think for most artists, spend your whole life. Really?
I heard Hancock say that. Learn the rules and forget them.
So for most art, and it's a dance because when you're learning, see, I'm still learning music and I've never really learned formally because someone else said this too. Whatever you have, get your voice out and establish your voice before you learn the form, because sometimes you learn the form and you confuse that for voice, but we all have an innate voice. So when I have people at my place and they want to play instruments or they want to play, I'm like, just get it out and we create a song with whatever they have, and then if you like it, then start learning form, but never stop letting that pure voice come out. because that's what you have that no one else has.
Right.
So you don't want to, like, so many people are derivative because they only learn form and they forget the voice.
Probably most people.
Yeah. I've always balanced, so
And
there's some
I
books I
think
don't
probably
know.
all people at some time or other are trying to approximate some form that they've seen. So
That's why-
becoming out of touch with who they are.
I've
This
doubt-
is why, if you see it as a symphony, if everybody's trying to play somebody else's part, the symphony is not going to manifest itself.
Exactly.
But if everybody's doing the profound spiritual work of, if you can call it that,
But we all
trying
need-
to manifest their own.
We all need to know how to read sheet music.
Right.
So you need to know how to.
But there's the paradox.
So what?
So a very famous option.
Oh, really? Who is that?
Pavarotti.
Pavarotti? Really? Oh, shit. So he was all fucking spirit.
Excuse me.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I always get down on myself that I should be able to read the notes on the page.
Dude, writers only start creating in the 30s and 40s. That's why I was like, 35 is a good time to start putting my voice down, and I feel like I've established it. But it takes a life to, like, because especially with writing, you need all those life experiences to contextualize. You can't just read Shakespeare with no context of the life that he's referring to. So you need to. So I think we're just hitting our stride.
That's
as
not like
writers.
I'm like fierce as an outliner. Like I don't even consider myself a writer. I consider myself a thinker who.
You might be a screenwriter because they're not really writers,
Yeah,
right? Because the
I've written, like,
screenwriters,
4
like
screenplays.
image, idea, the actors and directors will take it away, but concept. Like screenwriters really just a story guy. Screenwriters, one guy telling another guy that'd be a cool idea for a movie, and then they spend minimal effort to get it on paper and then sell it to someone else who's gonna hire 5 more guys to rewrite it. But the concept was what was gold.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend like that, and he has so many good scripts. He's the guy who got me to buy that book. He's gonna be fucking. He's like a Kevin Smith. He has so many stories in his head, but he's a
Yeah.
fucking lazy slob who fucking
He's a lazy slob.
Ubers all day. Well, I mean, he has 7 kids in Seattle, but yeah, so he's just Ubering just to survive. But if he could get himself some space, he has some amazing ideas.
That's cool.
But yeah, screenwriting is so minimal effort. Don't even be intimidated. That's why I got that book. It's writing by numbers. It's like painting by numbers. Yeah.
4 years ago, I had this just epiphany. I went from like a song, I've written a shit ton of songs, and I just
Oh yeah, you write songs. You play guitar, right? You sing.
yeah. That's what I.
We have to jam
for 20
out.
years. That's what I did. I wrote songs. I know everything about that craft. But it's I'm not performing on stage doesn't make me alive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, but acting does.
Yeah, much more so. But when I'm just kind of writing, just alone or talking with someone, that's my jam. That's my jam. Just getting ideas out, storylines.
I'll show you my website. I put all my writing on my website, so I have like all these poems and stories and songs. And
That's cool.
I took like Pablo Neruda poems and turned them into songs. I turned them into, because I speak Spanish a little bit, so I turned them into English songs and added a rhyming scheme to them. But like otherwise, they're exactly what he wrote. And he's like the Pablo Picasso of poets
Yeah.
and some other shit.
Absolutely.
I did enough to like prove to myself, like, you write a sonnet to be like, I could write like that. You know, it's like that's what school is. But like, I haven't really dug deep into any one vein. Now I'm trying to, the political writing, but I wrote like 100 pages of a novel, short stories, and lots of poems and
important to
songs.
find a focus. I see it like building a pyramid. So if you want just quick starting or whatever, get visibility, you just one block on top of another block. But then you're gonna have no substance, you're gonna have no base. But if you're forever building your base horizontally, you're never gonna connect with it.
You have to be
With it.
prolific. You have to create whatever you do, even
So
if they're
there's-
just outlines and you're never finishing it. Just keep creating it.
So you have to create that balance, like how wide you want your base to be versus how.
There's ways to trick your mind too. If you're one of these that like, you'll start a million stories but you'll never finish.
No, I finish them.
Huh?
Songwriting was my training ground. That's why I wrote songs, to train me to write stories and to finish them. I know the whole process, and I know.
You must
how
be
to
a
get
good
it.
songwriter then. If you're if you like stories. There's this guy Josh Ritter who studied folklore in school and then he started writing some amazing stuff. But like, yeah, narrative stories are fucking. And I'm not talking about a man came into town with a guitar over his back or some cheesy country songs. I'm saying like just songs that have a beginning, middle, and end, even if it's subtle. Like
Yeah, some of my best songs I think are story songs that put you in the scene.
just images, and it gives you a yeah.
Ballerina is one that's just it's great. Below that one.
Bob Dylan at his best was like that, like folk music. just
very
a couple
sensual,
words.
very visceral.
I love like how describing an image with economy. That's the best writing and the best movies too. One scene
absolutely.
characterizes
Yeah.
this fucking guy right
Yeah,
here.
some people are just spilling out words. Like that's not. I don't think that's writing. Just spilling out your subconscious.
Someone told me that about
It's
my
like-
reading. So it's like,
It's like that's good. That's a good part of the process, but that's it's rude.
you know what I have to
It's
do?
rude to say, "Here, look at that," and I just vomit it on a page.
I have to have my hostel people write journals or at least sign-ins because the guy who had your bed last was a writer. And I think it would have been really awesome. You can't talk to him, but if he had left a piece of himself there,
No,
you
should
could
do. You should
interact
have
with his...
Good luck.
perpetual narrative that's unfolding with people who
Oh shit, a
maybe on
story.
the wall, a story.
I just thought when you said perpetual narrative, I was going to do murals on those walls, but maybe one of them should be a story, and everyone is
You
allowed
start
so
from
many
one
characters.
little-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're allowed
And
so many characters.
I have like
and you
maybe
contribute to the
2,000.
story.
I bet I could fit 10,000 on that wall.
Yeah,
You're at a certain space.
that's a book, isn't it? What's a book? 100,000.
Yeah, exactly. No, 10,000 is a long form essay. 10 to 20,000 is something in New Yorker that runs for about 10 pages.
That's a good fucking idea.
I mean, because like as a writer, like when I was younger, I knew markets, where to sell your shit. 3 to 5,000 word essay, 10,000
That's a
word essay.
commercial idea right there.
I had a lot of my ideas are commercial
Plus
ideas.
it has
My fucking hostel is a commercial idea. The podcast where all the guests can go in. That room office is going to be live 24 hours. So if you ever want to dip in and create, you can do it. But it's going to be
Shit.
channel 13 because it's 13 Carmine number 13.
God,
It's a good idea, right?
that's really cool.
Yeah. No, I'm on the fucking brink of millions. That's what I was like. Do I want to do it with real estate though? And I was like, nah, because what you do is who you are. And I was like, because I got down to writing a book about Manhattan, and I was like, my first book's not going to be a fucking. Either I love Manhattan, but it's not going to be a book about Manhattan to support my real estate. That would kill me inside. Like my first published work is going to be me, because you only get one, and then I'll come back to real estate. It was sort of like I'm going to take my love to the prom. I'm not going to fucking take my sister.
Uh-huh.
I love my sister. Giving me my lifestyle. That's what people ask me if I'm happy. I'm like, I'm in a rich marriage. I don't love her, but I have a very nice life.
Yeah.
Not the perfect life, but I wouldn't trade that location for the world. You go to that roof and it's like, I could have $100
that's
million
it.
and I couldn't buy that view.
I would like to visit that sometime. It's fun.
I was hearing
Just
it
go out
too.
there, vibe out.
Like,
Maybe I'll smoke some
not
weed
a
out.
Jimmy.
Thursday, I'm inviting some friends over. Thursday or Friday, we're going to go up there. I'm going to do 5 grams of mushrooms. I might do like a recording of it. I never recorded myself tripping. 5 grams are like the Terrence McKenna ego death. You really like punch your ticket.
Ego, yes.
My first time I did that many, I wasn't verbal. So someone like our mind's so analytic, you're like, I want to talk. And I was just like looping words and shit.
Good.
My friends are like, you're not making any sense. I'm like, I am. I was like a kid, like a baby, 2-year-old, just, I want to make noise.
Yeah, you're so in touch with the primal that you can't constrain it to words.
And then I jumped, and then you have
You're
ideas that,
demonstrating my point.
yeah, and then you have ideas that if you run with them, they could be dangerous ideas. I'm pretty good at like physically incapacitating myself. Like I sit down with something against my back and I try not to move too much because I know I'm not in my right mind. Fucking, it's like that whole old guy who jumps out the window trying to fly. It's like, why didn't you start from the ground to see if you were like right? So I'm always,
right.
when I trip, I have this default suspicious of everything, but because that's a safe place to be when you're tripping. Like I wanted to go on top to the moon and I just felt like I wasn't strong enough to. And so I kind of hid from her, which that's how humble I am. I'm like, the moon's too much for me right now. But so I was talking to one friend and I was confused why the other person, I was like, no, you guys can share. I was so much in this collective conscious idea. I didn't understand why I couldn't talk to this person and then this person understand what they were thinking. And I was like, we're all, because I felt like I was understanding what everyone's thinking. It's like, well, no, tone down your trip.
Yeah.
Everyone's not on your. But now I'm to the point, I've gone to parties, I've done really big shit. Like I could do 5 grams here, just hang out. I've got a pretty good default
5
socialization.
grams, huh?
I went to this party with over 1,000 people, fucking dressed up like an Arab, turbaned out mystic with eyeshadow. I have some cool pictures, big old eagle feather in my head, or turkey feather. And I was just, people saw it in my eyes. I was so trippy. I had like 8 joints on me and just like light one up after another. And the energy I got at the party was like, what if there's a mass shooting here right now? And I was like, whoa, that's not my idea. That's a vibe.
Right.
All of this
That's
anxiety in
energy you
society,
picked up
whenever we're in a group of a large people, we all have that thought. maybe just 1 out of 1,000 thoughts, but it filtered past me, and I looked at the anxiety around me, and I was like, that's one. So I stopped in December because I was feeling that. That was in October, but in December, I was feeling. There were 2 terrorist attacks, November, December in New York, and I'm like, it's too much. I need to fucking
Really?
add my 2 cents to the conversation, because that's being a man, being a philosopher, being a man. It's like, you can't just live with your head down. You got to step up and be like, look, I think I have something to say.
Yeah.
Even if you're wrong. But that's the scariest part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially, I've posted, like, I have little quotes, particularly when I walk. I walked 5 miles to my fucking gate yesterday.
Put you in a certain headspace, right?
It does. I have a lot of my ideas, and I posted. I did this on Facebook. I'll just post one. But I say,
I think you'd benefit from some marijuana therapy, dude. An hour or 2, morning
I
or
will
night.
say that marijuana just kind of lowers my energy and increases my thoughts.
Exactly.
Whereas psychedelics, yeah, but that's not good for me because I'm always
Nah,
thinking. So, like, psychedelics increase my energy
And increase it, especially
and my
mushrooms.
thoughts, so they kind of bring them to balance, I think.
I've been drinking and I took some mushrooms and it actually gets rid of the alcohol, like Coke, which is really crazy. I didn't realize it does that. But it sobers you and it gives you energy, which is like I know a couple people now who microdose instead of drinking. They'll be out with their buddies drinking, but they're just taking pinches of mushrooms. And if you take a little bit, it gets you a little goofy like the alcohol. But with the energy and without the you have more clarity.
Yeah, see, I don't know if that means anything, but
Yeah, I like that, dude. No, it's fucking. I really like that. That's like some left-handed suit. Was it left-handed Veda? There's like this Indian mysticism. It's like you can learn from the good, but you can also learn from the bad.
Yeah.
So some of them are like junkies or like very terrible lives. But they're like, no, I'm on my path for wisdom, but like I'm just amplifying the devil. But it's the same truth. I like that, dude.
right. And then I was like having debates in my head whether or not it was a nonsense statement.
No.
And I was hearing my friends say, "Yeah, what about Trump? He has a microphone." I'm like,
Exactly.
Exactly.
I have a. Oh, here, pull it up again. I'm gonna take a picture. But I'm a sharp critic, and I think any editing you have to get rid of at least 50%, because none of us are that smart.
None of us are that smart.
So,
No, well, here's another. Here's what I think will converge is that we tend to think of intelligence as a property of the individual,
right, exactly.
whereas we need to start thinking of intelligence as a function of relationship.
Check this out. A function of relationship. I like that.
So we say, "You're smart, I'm smart, he's dumb, she's dumb," you know?
Yeah, right.
Whereas that's ridiculous.
I try to take it so it's like a little bit stylized.
A little bit so.
You can just barely read it. Kind of cut out your name. I'll cut out the bottom people too.
Oh shit!
Just-
We'll send that out in the universe as just anonymous meme.
Yeah, I take fucking pictures of my chess games.
Oh man.
And then so I'm gonna put this up there. Like, just this was a really interesting position.
Chess too.
Oh, do you play chess? So
Yeah,
check out.
I'm rusty as fuck.
You see that
so-
background is Mario dressed up as Hunter S. Thompson with all of his fucking drugs. So like when I play chess, I do it as a.
That is a trippy game.
It's a meditation on my sobriety. Like where my mom's like, "You're doing too many drugs. You're getting stupid." I'm like, my chess score's going up. So that's an objective metric of my intelligence.
That's an objection.
So when I'm really high or I'm really fucked up, and I could see it over the year, like it definitely dipped last summer because I was doing a lot of psychedelics, and now it's picking back up again. So you do need to respect your sobriety and put time into your sober self.
Sober self is important because another state of mind that you have to honor.
You're the one that handles all the responsibility, and don't be naive like we're not surrounded by danger. A bunch of people who would fucking predate on you. So yeah, sober self keeps you out of trouble, but they're not the ones who create. They're the
Yeah,
ones.
that's what I'm saying. Like yesterday.
It's the wet blanket, but you need that wet blanket to fucking like tell you need to go home at midnight because nothing good comes out at midnight after midnight or
You're not
something.
gonna fly off the ledge of the building.
No, the sober state. Sober self is freaking the fuck out when you trip.
Is what?
Freaking the fuck out.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's losing control.
Like danger, 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 and they have no say on it.
Yeah.
So
renouncing your patterns.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, renouncing your patterns. You got some good lines, man. Because that's like not something you just come to. That's like, it takes your life experience to come up with that aphorism. That's why I love aphorisms. You're fucking...
Well, it's the songwriter, man. It's the hook.
Ah.
Speaking of hooks.
A couple of those. But yeah, you have to renounce your patterns in order to create new ones, but that middle part is really weird because you renounce your patterns by saying they're constructed. But that's like, wow, nothing exists. And some people get stuck there in this fucking nihilism of like, or existentialism is what that is.
Yeah.
That tightrope between meanings.
Well, you get lost there too.
And then they claim, all right, if nothing exists, then whatever you create is purposeful because it's all creation. It's like, no. And that's why I think psychedelics
that's
around
the
you.
Postmodern
Yeah.
stuff.
And that's why I was saying that the world was on a different path before World War II. This really fucking absinthe, weed smoking, probably mushroom taking, because Christianity was just another mushroom cult, so they've never gone away. Like, we were on an
Christianity was an early mushroom cult.
There's mushrooms in all the early Christian fucking paintings and shit. And they found weed oil, the anointing oil from like early fucking Jewish temples. They found traces of cannabis oil. So when they're rubbing oil on you and you're speaking in tongues, dude, everyone's just getting baked. Christianity comes out as this empathetic, like, let's just love our enemies until fucking Martin Luther King Jr. type shit. When someone's Gandhi type shit, when someone's oppressing you, you just need to love them more. That can only come from like, I don't know. Maybe some people are really loving, but just now they're only realizing that psychologically, scientifically, mushrooms increase your empathy. They're starting to like neurally map empathy in your brain.
I kind of like feel like I'm falling in love with people like ayahuasca and mushrooms.
Yeah. Now, ayahuasca, did you encounter any like demons and shit? Because that's the thing with ayahuasca, is like you're such a...
Ayahuasca, I always opt for the lighter medicine. And my ego's saying, no, you're going to do this for real. And then I'm like, no, it's not calling me. That's my ego saying it. So I go like the dimey light skipping on a cloud sort of fucking shit.
That's why you're still tripping.
Because I'm so intense. Like,
exactly. No, I agree, man.
Like, I don't want to go there. It'll let me know when I go there.
I related
think,
to...
man, would you mind like walking my car with me and finding like a parking space closer?
We'll cash out. You got cash or?
Yeah, no, I got this.
I got her tip at least. But yeah, I feel the same way about ayahuasca. I haven't pushed it, and I relate it to working out. It's like when people are like, you could break your mind. I'm like, you could break your body if you lift 400 pounds, but just did you do the training to lift it? So I just went back to the gym after 2 weeks off. 1 warm-up set and 2 medium sets. You have to really, especially once you're in your 30s, give yourself time to come back. So for you, you're like, yeah, you got to trust your intuition and that ego thing. Every time I've gone back after a couple weeks, a couple months off, and I've hurt myself, it's because that ego was like, you could do it. You used to do it. I was like, no, ego. So my rule of thumb is do less than what you think you can do. If I think I could do like this amount, do a little bit less, and just eat the ego and be like, next time, a week or 2, I'll be right there. And
it's an interesting, I think there's a religion of ambition in our culture.
That's a good way to put it. There's a religion of ambition. Which goes into that myth of the fucking individual and the 100% agency.
Yes.
See, so you're on my side already. And by the end of this, I'm going to convince you have no free will.
What? You're going to convince me? By the end of
this, yeah. And that's how cults are created.
I thought I was going to convince you there was no free will.
Oh, really? I thought you were saying that there's individual agency. That's free will, right?
I think those are two different domains of philosophy, but they're 2 different realms. Because you can have that free will debate. I don't know. I have to think about that.
I like our concept about art, though. Like art, individual, what it means to the individual, what does it mean to society, and which domain does the definition of art reside? Does it reside in that relationship to the society, or does it reside in that relationship to purely the individual?
If you shift the onus on that attribution to one side, it becomes absurd. If you say it's only the populace, is it right in the middle, though? Art.
I put it more to society than I do to the individual, because I fear the ego more than I fear the social reality we all construct.
You don't think we can have a collective ego?
We do, but I think...
Some of the worst atrocities of human history are committed by collective egos.
Manipulated by a concentrated few. never happens just out of collective. Usually not. That would be like the mob rule, but usually incited by, like, you know, the French Revolution. I can point to fucking, you know, a concentrated few who got the power for that. Occupy Wall Street, I could tell you why we are corrupted by concentrated groups of interested power, you know, structures. So yeah, no, I think the internet proves that to us. That it actually, here's an example. If you have Jelly Bellies in a jar, and you ask people to guess how many there are, like in that jar, right? And then they say the
We'll take the check.
closest to the winner gets the prize or whatever. The more people who guess on it, the closer the average will get to the accurate amount of jelly beans in that jar. And so the larger the number, exactly.
Listen to the crowds.
We usually fucking, I mean, because that's
Yeah, but there's also negative sides to crowds. There's moral panics. There's
again manipulated by concentrated few. So I really believe in that.
an interesting, quick responses.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, this is what I think about. So I told you I'm trying to create a synthesized version of my belief system with a 360-degree defense of every possible. So I'm not going to get everything, but when I say I'm attacking the Western canon, I better be able to defend against most ideas coming out of it.
So you have to.
And I haven't read most of the stuff, but I've read surveys. I like that. I try to avoid, like, I've read a couple Shakespeare plays. I haven't read it all. I like to. That's how you create your own voice, because so many people that I read, I think that's what happened to Hunter S. Thompson. He had really cool ideas, but he wanted to be John Steinbeck. These guys, they read too much of the canon, and all they want to be is
Mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake.
Yeah, all they want to be is
digesting too much.
because they just want to be an imitation of the
It
heroes.
has to be a rhythm. It's a dance, like you said. It has to be a dance.
That's why I dropped out of college. It's like, shit, I don't want to be an imitation of
It's
this.
constantly, and there are people like that. I think they become professors.
Yeah.
They're constantly digesting shit, regurgitating.
I've avoided those
They
people all
lose their
along my
youth.
path. Fucking,
You're an interesting film.
yeah, I got some ideas. Well, maybe you met me in order to move to New York. If you could swing the finances, right? That's the biggest question about New York. Can you?
I've never landed how to make money.
Oh yeah. I try to. My goal is to be a master, the soul who straddles all worlds. So I could hang with the hippies, hang with the money people, hang with the protesters, hang with the dominant and the subaltern power structures. This is really
I
cool
think,
because
yeah, my book, I think, has a good shot of at least creating some momentum in my life.
fiction book.
Fiction book.
Sweet. Yeah, we didn't even talk about stories. But
Oh, that's gonna be a whole other conversation. It's gonna be a lot of fun too.
yeah, maybe you hang out for one more day and fucking talk about shit.
We'll see.
Here, check this out. See, and I got the whole conversation, an hour.
Pero ya. Yo soy un anticristo, yo soy anarquista, no sé lo que quiero, sé cómo tenerlo, quiero destrozar a cualquiera. Yo quiero ser anarquía. Anarquía en el USA. Ya viene el tiempo, ya viene Maybe. La pinche migra, el pinche freeway. Su futuro es un desastre. Yo quiero ser modos de conseguir. Quemo los chingones y los demás, los enemigos y la anarquía, porque yo quiero ser anarquía.